Hey everyone. Holly here. I'm with Matt today, and we are going to chat a little bit about a recent ayahuasca experience Matt had over the weekend. If you caught Matt's first interview where we chatted about his experience with ayahuasca, you'll know that he's no stranger to the ceremony, but fresh off a weekend of some really exciteful and awesome journeys. So yeah, let's chat about it, Matt. How's your weekend? How are you today?
Amazing. Amazing. Appreciate the intro there. The weekend was phenomenal. There was a very potent atmosphere. The prayers were incredible and just such a deep understanding of the universal consciousness. Um, yeah, it I definitely have a download that I got the day after the second ceremony. So I'll maybe just start by reading that and kind of take it from there. But there were there were definitely some common themes: awareness and consciousness and creator and free will were all deep themes along with unity. Um, so this, I don't know what you would call it, but it was just kind of a stream of thought that just kind of came to me that I felt compelled to write down. I am probably the um, not the biggest journaler, but this felt good to just write out and get down on paper. So it's self-titled "We Are Becoming Aware." It goes, we don't die. That's just a concept we created. We are becoming aware, even in the silence, even in the nothingness. We are becoming aware. Consciousness equals awareness. Consciousness doesn't die. There is one consciousness. It's what unites us, humans, animals, plants, Pachamama. Nothing can be without the other. That's the secret of the quantum. Awareness is the only thing we can receive. Awareness is the only thing we can give. There is no time. There is no space. There are no years. More concepts we created. We are just becoming aware. There is the river, and there is the one at the side of the river watching, becoming aware. Awareness equals creation. Creator is just becoming aware. We create. We are creator. There is no sleep. There is rest. Waking up is simply becoming aware. We are aware. We are becoming aware.
Did you know you were a poet before this? That was beautiful.
I have written some poetry before.
I love
Not
that.
not not ever under the medicine though. Not
Yeah.
under the power of the
Hey,
medicine.
that's your secret writing vice, perhaps.
It is. So yeah, I feel like it was definitely some of these concepts that have been heavily present during previous ceremonies, and it seemed like the fabric of all those themes just perfectly intertwined this time, and just a new level of understanding and a new level of, quote unquote, it all makes sense now. That kind of feeling, and um, that deep gratitude and understanding where, yeah, I mean, just all those concepts felt so alive, and just thinking on time and space. And the first night was incredible, just as always. A lot of work, a lot of purging in the entire container, um, and might have been the fermentation of the medicine, but at the same time, it's just probably what was needed. One way or the other, that was what was needed, and it was wild. It felt like there was no time. Every moment that I was aware that, hey, we're still here, it feels like we've been here forever. Losing that concept of time and in trying to grasp it of, are we are we close to the end of ceremony? Like, where are we at? We've only drinking 1 cup of medicine. Usually we'll drink 2 and maybe a third, usually third on the second night. And so I just honestly thought, oh, I missed the call for the 2nd cup of medicine, whatever. This is great. A lot of good work and good prayers. And then, they made the call for the 2nd cup of medicine, and my being was like, oh my God, we're only halfway through. Holy moly. So it was, again, kind of this losing this concept of time and space, and, consciously thinking of, we're in the year 2024. Like, what the hell does that even mean? It's like this concept that we created, and the medicine just kept telling me, there are no years. There is no time. There's just awareness. We are just constantly becoming aware of what is, and constantly creating. And whether it's me creating or doing, or you, Holly, creating or doing, one way or another, the consciousness is becoming aware of that creation, aware of the creation of sound, or the creation of movement. And yeah, just some of those real fundamental aspects of our consciousness.
Do you see that consciousness, like, if we're, you're talking a little bit about this unity consciousness, how do you envision this, or did this come up at all during ceremony, like the spread of that outside of the container you were in? You know what I mean? Like, how does that?
It relates to all humans, animals, and plants. Humans in the sense of, the idea of our ancestors became incredibly, again, I'm using the word potent just because of that very deep, saturated understanding that, wasn't necessarily there before, but made incredible sense, and I'd say most of the kind of unity consciousness, or universal consciousness rather, was with my son. Like, I felt like we were one and the same person, and I was manifesting myself as him. I would get this just uncontrollable bout of giggles, and then have a deep breath, that it was like just this back and forth of, almost like it was kind of toying with me, or like playing with me, and tickling me over and over again. And it would be like, oh no, to be during these moments of, intense, the container with intense purging, or, serious moments, or when it was dead silent, and, you would think that the atmosphere was very serious, and then all of a sudden it was like, and I'm just, going, oh no, like, I know it's coming, and then just an outburst of giggles and laughter, and just kind of had that very, deep awareness of the, us, me and my son, being in that moment the same person to an extent. And again, probably a lack of a better way of describing that, but then it kind of translates to, your ancestors, the elders. Again, in theory, everyone can trace their lineage if you go so far up the tree. There's only so many branches that you can get to, and so it kind of, again, brings all of humanity to some unified or universal level. And again, it kind of, it feels like, again, there is no age. Like, how old are you? And it was actually a great ceremony because it was my birthday, and that was kind of fun. I got mad blessings, and at one point, they asked, well, how old are you? And my mind was breaking, kind of like, what do you mean there is no age? Like, like, how could you ask this question under the power of the medicine? But it was just, that was stemming from just this understanding that I was getting of, there is not necessarily, again, it's just there are these concepts that we created. How old are you is a concept that we created in order to try and understand our life. And again, just kind of this notion that trying to blend the two worlds together. This notion of, as you're getting older, as you're aging, you're just becoming more aware. You're just gaining awareness and gaining a fuller level of understanding, awareness, or consciousness than my 1 or 2-year-old son. And his level of awareness and consciousness is maybe here. And as you get older, and everything starts to make sense, where you're like, oh, I get it. I get why why the elders hold so much wisdom and kind of the the power behind that, and the level of consciousness and the role and the place of their consciousness versus versus a toddler. So I think related to humans, that was very apparent. And then the role of the feminine, that comes up a lot with Grandma Ayahuasca, and just was very kind of, again, a potent awareness of the different divine feminines and feminine roles. Again, at least in my life, and kind of seeing the universal thread behind that, and how how tribes and families are held together by that universal feminine grandmother thread. And then even furthermore, how kind of like the unity of the matriarchal and patriarchal, and how like we again try to create these concepts where it's one or the other, and really it's both. Like both exist together in the most beautiful way. And then kind of the same idea with with plants and consciousness as well. And obviously we're tapping into these plant teachers and the the consciousness that Grandma Ayahuasca brings and gives. So again, just kind of really seeing that light, and a lot of learning, a lot of getting downloads and understanding. And I'd say, I think someone asked about like the visuals and that aspect, and that's always there. Like I don't necessarily know how to describe that, but it's less of seeing a symbol and more of gaining a deep understanding and a deep learning of some of these concepts, which I don't know, to me is the most powerful part of it.
You've talked before about, in our last chat, you talked about the concept of maybe just the thought of death and dying, and how that was a bit of a theme in your first ceremony. Did that resurface here on this like conversation about consciousness and awareness? Did the topic of death and afterlife, or what happens to that consciousness, come up again for you in any way?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think the part of that I was exploring was, does consciousness die? And this is kind of like that concept of, death is this concept that we again created, right? Like in order to understand why this person that I'm aware of that's in front of me now is now no longer in front of me. It's again just kind of exploring those self-created concepts of death, and and again, it's who knows what happens when you die. Like we haven't died and whatnot, so there's that layer of I'm not here saying this is what it is or whatnot. So, but this is the download that I was getting, and kind of the thought pattern that the medicine was bringing me down was was that, you know, the human dies, but the consciousness doesn't, and the consciousness is, you know, and again, maybe that, and that's kind of how I thought of that is, does that consciousness get absorbed into like the greater earth consciousness? Like what's the hierarchy there? And if kind of like the if then, if the conscious doesn't die, but your human form dies, does that consciousness now transfer over to, a new tree or an insect or another human or whatnot? Does it get absorbed into the planetary consciousness, or and I guess that's kind of where I settled on, was, the universal consciousness. And, even, kind of the consciousness of the container, and it, just kind of metaphorically, was trying to bridge those two, where it felt like, everyone, again, right, like everyone in the container had a role and had a purpose. And when, right, when there was silence and it felt super intense, it was probably my role to have an uncontrollable giggle laughter that that broke that tension. And what would the container do without that? And kind of the universal conscious has all aspects and all angles and all facets, and what would it do without one of those pieces of the puzzle? So I think that was something that was, like, I don't know, felt good. It felt, like it had like a feeling of truth. And yeah, I mean, that was that was really interesting, because again, I feel like I've gone through that exploration of mortality, of death, and the curiosity around that, the fear of that. And so this was a real good continued understanding of of what that looks like.
Was your second night vastly different from your first night this time? How did they play off of each other, or were they pretty connected, or two totally different stories?
Totally connected. And I've become very rooted in my intentions of continuous practice of the art of letting go, and surrender is typically my intention now, because that is the foundation of everything that comes from it. And then secondarily is freedom of worship. And so the first night was a lot of work. And I think that's, kind of the way of the medicine. And then the second night is a little bit, I don't want to say a little bit deeper, but, it kind of, you've put in work, you've put in, purging and all this and that. And, then it kind of opens the door for, a different room that you might not have been able to go to on the second night. And so the second night was, I'd say like, a lot more, dancing, at least for me, dancing and singing, and, being part of the movement of the container, which was, someone asked me before, what do you contribute? And I'm like, interesting question. Like I don't fancy myself as a, the best musician or the best singer or dancer or anything, but, I mean, I make sound, I move, so I was like, oh, I'm not sure. And then that, kind of what I came around towards at the, I guess after both ceremonies, and told that same person, I said, I didn't have an answer for you, but now I do. I said, I contribute, at first I thought I contribute sound, but what that really, I think what I was alluding to is I contribute my presence, I contribute my being, whatever that is, if that manifests itself as
Laughter.
uncontrollable child laughter,
Yeah.
singing and being part of the tribe and the harmony and the choir, dancing and reacting, whatever that might be. That's what I contribute. I contribute myself, my presence, my being. And I don't know, that felt incredible to come to that realization. And, again, kind of that idea that, your sound, your music, your movement, your dancing, like is valuable. It's good enough. It's, it holds purpose, within the container, but within, the larger container of the universe.
So how many weekends have you sat with ayahuasca now?
Four within the last year.
Okay, so does every experience feel, I know, new and different, but what I mean is, like, do you feel maybe better prepared every time, or every time you go in, is it just like, nope, have no idea what could possibly happen, there's no way to prepare whatsoever? Like, are the experiences layering on top of each other, and is there
They're
value, do
layering.
you think, in these multiple scenarios? Like,
Yeah.
it's like peeling back the onion every time a little deeper.
Yes. Yeah. They're layering. It's like peeling back the onion, a new layer every time. I also personally don't think, for me at least, that there's necessarily any way to prepare. There have been certain times where things are on my mind in the 2 or 3 weeks leading into it, or even the 2 or 3 days leading into it. And you kind of have a gut intuition of, okay, this is going to come up. This time I didn't have that. And so I was unsure of what was going to come up. And, and again, I think that's where I've just I treat it as, this is a practice, a continuous practice of the art of letting go, the art of surrendering, and the art of worship. And, you're getting a very, concentrated dose of all of those things. And it's teaching you, it's helping you practice those things. And, hopefully those are things that I continue to then, I'm able to carry and integrate. We use that word integrate, but continue to carry, throughout my awareness and conscious existence, ongoing. And, again, those are things that seem to always work out in ways that haven't been able to necessarily put words on it, where, I always, I have a certain narrow view and plan sometimes. And I think that was said, the best way to get God to laugh is tell him your plans. And I feel that is so true. Anytime I have, a plan of how things are going to go, it could be, hey, here's how our evening is going to go, or here's how, this whole part of my life is going to go. That never, ever, 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 ever happens. And so there's a point, and again, this is just some point in my life that I probably can't pinpoint, but several years back, where I just said, all right, well, no expectations. That was my verbiage for it. No expectations. Let happen what's going to happen. And, fuck it, let's see. And that everything amazing and fruitful from my life has come from that mentality, and that, practice of letting go and surrendering, my ego, my pride, my wishes or wants or plans, so to speak. So I think that's the, and that's always what what I come back to and recommend with anybody who's sitting with me, or whatnot, who has certain intentions. It's always always the root of that is always letting go and surrendering whatever it is that you're holding on to. And it's always seems to be the secret sauce, and it always seems to be, it's the human struggle too, because for me, again, there are times, especially the first night and even the second night, where you feel yourself holding on, and I have this recognition of it's also the medicine kind of toying. That's kind of how I think of it. It's like the medicine's toying with me, like I'm supposed to hold on until the last possible second that I can't hold on anymore. And then that release is, that's where the magic comes, the magic, like if it was easy and you just were never holding on in the first place and you were always letting go, like, there's no magic there. There's no tension, there's no yin and yang. And so it's that idea that both have to exist. And that's another kind of piece of the fabric of the medicine that I really enjoy is the, I call it the when it breaks your brain. At least that's how I think of it. When it's one thing that must be true, and then all of a sudden the opposite must also be true, and you're like, well, how can that be? And it, like, the whole universe envelops onto itself. Like the pictures of the never-ending staircase. It's like, hey, we reached the top. Oh no, like it's your, and it's almost, again, kind of like the the universe and our universal conscious creating this, never-ending web of existence. And as soon as you think you found the top or the end of the finish line, it's, you're right back at the start of something else. And just kind of, at least for me, I call that the breaking of the brain, or when your mind breaks. It's like, oh, that's, to me, that's kind of fun. You get stuck in those thought loops, and there were certain times where it's like, oh man, I'm never getting out of this thought loop. Like, this is I realize that all, there will be sobering moments when the medicine, is no longer as potent, but like, we're forever stuck in these thought loops. Our conscious is forever stuck in these thought loops. And, at times it was a little overwhelming, but there's kind of like, that's also the beauty of it. And yeah, so it was definitely a glorious weekend, and so many fruitful things came from it. So much renewed energy, which seems to always happen. And yeah, really, really grateful to be able to share it here. And I mean, again, just a lot of concepts that were explored, and I mean, there's plenty more to dive into and continue kind of working through. But I think that was a good overview layer of what was explored.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. It's cool to hear how this evolves. So please keep sharing your stories so we can all watch this evolution alongside you.
You mean keep sitting?
Yeah, keep sitting. Sorry. Keep sitting, keep sharing.
I will. I think I will.
Yeah. Awesome.
As long as it keeps calling.
Yeah, right. That's the key component there. You'll know.
I just need to hear the call. Yep.
Yeah, you'll know.